Shalom. I'll give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, by Shem HaKadosh, the mothers to the elders and apostles of great millstone, on top of this truth and sincerity, salutations to the hopeful that spirit of the workings of the earth. This is going to be another video entitled Let the Weak Say I'm Strong. And I got a post here by Political Made Simple's Politics Made Simple. Caption reads, Trump now eyes Cuba intervention. Trump praises Israel's Netanyahu. Trump switches solo endorsement and SC government, so Sacramento government, to a duo endorsement. Hunter Biden again challenges Trump Jr. to a fight. But the point is this post here, this one post. It reads, Trump says Cuba operation should mirror Venezuela. President Trump said Thursday on the, I can pronounce that word, shows that it is possible a potential Cuba invasion will resemble the swift capture of Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro in January. Trump also acknowledged the Iran conflict is taking longer to resolve because Iran has more powerful military and is far away. He suggested Cuba could be easier to overpower. So this is a direct quote, okay? This is a direct quote. So Trump acknowledged that Iran conflict is taking over because Iran has a more powerful military. Now, how ironic is that, okay? That's a because ultimately, a nation, U.S. is considered this world superpower, right? And you have the president of the world superpower claiming another nation that is weak, considered weak economically, weak militarily, by this world standard, is more powerful than the world superpower, okay? More powerful, all right? And why is that? Because Iran has allies. Iran is just not fighting as a lone wolf. Iran has allies, okay? Iran has Russia, China backing it by providing Iran, Russia and China. If you have been, watching, that war, Russia and China have been providing Iran with intelligence, on military bases across Western Asia, right? That's how Iran is able to, strike, U.S. military bases in Western Asia because Russia and China have been providing Iran with intelligence. Okay, so yeah, and we know the puppet. We know Trump is just a puppet leader. So the people that control him is telling him to back off. Really, right? Tell him to stop. But the point is, it goes. All go back to prophecy, right? Let the weak say I'm strong, and now they're trying to. He's trying to, back out of Iran and go to Cuba, right? But now he says that Cuba will be easier to overpower, right? But we know Cuba allies are Russia, really, because during the going back to 1900s, around 1958, 1958, 1962, you have something called Cuban Missiles Crisis, right? Where Russia was building nuclear missiles in Cuba, right? So Russia was basically an ally of Cuba, right? Russia back then was a Soviet Union. But the point is, Cuba has allies, right? So the weak is in their strong, right? By these superpowers like Russia and China, being allied with them. Okay. Joe 31 Joel 31, which goes back to the nations will be judged. Okay. For behold, in those days, in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations, and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people, and for my heritage Israel, where Yashrada, the true nation, the true chosen nation, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my men. Okay, so those days, meaning in this current world, right, in this current generation, right, the Lord He will return, okay, and bring again the captivity of Judah. Jerusalem, meaning it started with the elect, okay. He's gonna redeem His elect out of where they out of the nation they be scattered amongst. For example, Babylon the Great. You know, majority of the Israelites are in Babylon the Great, and you have if the majority of the Israelites are in Babylon the Great. The majority of the elect is in Babylon the Great. Okay, so they're gonna be delivered, okay, into those chariots of salvation. All right, that is the start of breaking the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. That's the start of we getting delivered for our captivity, and the nation, the elect, right? The elect is scattered amongst the four corners of the earth, right? Where we have been, where you know the our enemies have scattered, basically scatter us too, right? Starting with the transatlantic slave trade, sold into slavery by the Ishmaelites to the Edomites, right, to Ashkenazi um, Jews, right, brought to America, all right, to serve as a slave, right, or you have some people that was scattered to Europe, okay, or Asia, right, to serve as slaves, But again, the point is, all right, the Lord he's going to return to deliver His elect, okay, and the Lord while he's doing that, you know, really they're gonna be destruction on these nations, right? In the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is Yahweh's judgment, really it's Jehoshaphat because it's Yahweh's judgment, right? And that the judgment gonna start in Asia, right? In Western Asia, right? The land barren desolate, which is basically Saudi Arabia. Okay, all nations going to go there to fight. Okay, but really they're fighting. They think they're fighting. They think they're going to really, they're going to fight each other, but they're going to see Yahweh Shah no change. They're going to start fighting Yahweh Shah and Michael, archangel. That's why Revelation goes into, there's war in heaven. That war in heaven goes back to Esau, the nation, fighting against the Yahweh Shah and Michael the archangel and the angels, right? But who prevailed? They didn't prevail, okay? The Lord prevailed. Michael the archangel, the Lord, really Yahweh Shah prevailed. Esau, the Edomites, the other nation, they lost, okay, that battle. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Yeah, you had you know the auction, right? The auction, you have something called auction, you know, auction during slavery. Um, when we to be to or to be sold into slavery, scramble auctions, right? Scramble auction, which I just looked it up. Says a scramble auction was one of the most brutal and chaotic forms of selling enslaved Africans during the transatlantic domestic slave trade. Okay, because they will ultimately, you know, yeah, they would just judge you based on your strength, on your behavior, if you're obedient or not, you know, on they basically judge you on your obedience and your strength. If you, especially if you're male, if you're female, your beauty, your skills you have, etc. You know, so the Lord He remember all of that, right? and they will bid for, they will bid. They would cast odds. They will bid, right? They will say, you have this slave can cost might cost this much money. Then you have someone in the audience. They might bid for like 1,000, five, you know, $100. Then you have someone that might bid for $200, whatever, however it worked, right? You have a lot of slave movers on it, right? Uh, 12 Years a Slave is one of them, right? And I suggest you to watch it, right? Because it goes into it, you know, the scramble auction, okay? And had given a boy for a harlot, and it sold a girl for wine that they might drink. Yeah, and what have you to do with me, O Tari and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? Recompense? And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your head? Right. And really, it goes back to the Ishmaelites, okay? So they can't pay the Lord for what they done for what they done to His people, okay? You know, because you have taken my silver and my gold, which is referred to, the Lord chosen people, right? The southern kingdom, the northern kingdom, and I carried into your temples my good and pleasant things, okay? The children also Judah and the children of Jerusalem, how you sold unto the Grecians, right? The Ishmaelites sold us unto the Grecians, which the Grecians are the Edomites, okay? The Ashkenaz Jews, okay? The fake Jews, okay, ultimately, right? So they have sold us to the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border, okay? And that mainly was during the time of that happened. When was it? When the diaspora, when we fled into the west coast of Africa, fled into the wilderness. Okay, that we didn't you know our cultural identity, our heritage was not of the people who lived was not of the Hamites, right? That was inhabiting West Coast, inhabiting Africa. We live way different than them, right? The Hamites, they're heathen, right? Those are the black, those are the black people, right? Those are the ones because black just even mean void of light. The Hamites are void of lights, right? Because they don't have the truth, they don't have the laws or anything, right? So ultimately, the Ishmaelites, looked upon our people, and the Hamites ultimately had a part in, you know, our people going to captivity because, we didn't, our spirit didn't resonate with their spirit. They were heathens and we were the chosen nation of the Lord, okay? We were the children of the Lord, right? We were the children of the righteous. So they had a part in selling us to the Edomites, okay? That you may remove them far from the border, right? Our homeland, right? So Tari Zidon, yeah, because these are going back to the heathens because you have taken fuck you to Joel the third chapter verse 7. So behold, I will raise them out of the place where you have sold them and will return your recompense upon your head. Right, it started with the elect. Okay, the elect is being raised out of the place that we are in. That will be so too spiritually first. There's gonna be a physical redemption, right? With us being beaten up to those into those chariots of salvation. Then and during that time, right, there'll be that so simultaneously going to be deliverance and destruction. So while the Lord delivers the elect, He's also going to be recompense, um, will return the recompense upon the nation's head, right, by destroying them. Okay, in that war. Proclaim ye among it's like a complaint. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty man. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Okay. Fuck you. I missed one. Joel 3:8. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they should sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it. Okay, this is yet to come, right? This will come, right? We will. Scripture speaks about he that leads in captivity should go into captivity, right? So this prophecy is yet to be fulfilled, right? The Lord, we're not in rulership at the moment. We don't have slaves. We don't have servants, right? But in the kingdom of heaven, we will be, you know, buying and selling, the nations, right? The children of the nations, okay? Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. All right. And this is what you're seeing, right? Current world events, nothing but war preparation, right? You have Finland, now allowing nukes to be transported, you know, in their nation. You have France, okay, displaying their nuclear power, their nuclear capabilities. You have um, 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 North Korea displaying their nuclear capabilities and threaten U.S. and South Korea by saying that if you think we want to use these nuclear weapons, you better think again. Basically, what they're saying, right? Um, we have Russia, Ukraine, okay, U.S., Iran, Israel, um, you know, different nations, that's preparing for war. So the Lord is waking up the mighty man, right? He putting a spirit, you can feel the spirit of war, right? You know, cause war just goes back to really, it's not always fighting, right? But basically war goes back to opposition, right? So you can feel the opposition within the spirit, within the world. Nations rising up against one another. That's the end time sign. Okay, beat your plowshares into swords, meaning your pruning hooks into spears. Now these are plowshares and pruning hooks are all tools used for farming. So the Lord basically said, these nations are basically they're the U.S. now talk about ripping up their defense spending, right? So this basically is going to this in this modern time, right? Nations wrapping up their defense spending, spending money on defense, right? And U.S. is a leading nation on that. U.S. I believe produces basically produces its whole GDP on defense, right? The whole GDP goes into defense, right? It doesn't go into making America great again. Definitely not. It doesn't go into putting America first, right? It goes into its military, okay? Because the Lord has the spirit on these nations to prepare war. Okay, because it's end times prophecy, right? It has to come. No matter what, you can't stop prophecy. Okay, no matter how we cannot stop prophecy, right? There's no such thing as peace. No, there's no peace. The Lord says there's no. They'll say the Lord, no peace for the enemy. There's no peace for Esau, right? They think they have this whole their peace board. Okay, you know they have their peace board. Okay, their United Nation. All right, but even in the UN, they're divided, right, against one another, right? So there's no peace for the enemy, right? There's no peace for the enemy. You cannot. There's no peace for the wicked. Okay, fuck it. There's no peace for the wicked. That's in Psalms. That's in Psalms. Yeah, fuck it. Isaiah 48. Fuck it. Isaiah 48:22. There's no peace, says the Lord, unto the wicked. Yeah, so there's no peace unto the wicked. Let the weak say strong. And how's the weak saying they're strong? By calling on their allies, right? Like Russia and China. Okay, you know, by buying or by spending, like buying more military, all right, equipment, you know, and training their people how to use them. Okay, so the weak is saying they're strong. Okay, as Trump quoted, Iran have a more powerful military. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna close here by giving all honor and praises to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh, by Shem, Kabbalah, Shem, Shalom.